The hospital bracelet remained tight around my wrist as I struggled to adjust Sophia in my arms, trying to fit the key into the lock. My hands were shaking. Fatigue and post-cesarean pain made every movement difficult. I took a deep breath, turned the key again, still couldn't open it. "No way," I whispered, trying to twist harder. Sophia squirmed on my chest, her small face wrinkled in discomfort. She was only 3 days old, but she already had the same expression as her father. I hugged my baby tightly, trying to comfort him with my trembling voice. The phone in my coat pocket vibrated. I quickly pulled it out, secretly relieved when I saw the name Ethan flashes on the screen. He must have seen me through the doorbell camera. It's probably just a mistake. Right? I opened the message, but instead of feeling relief, I felt like I was being punched hard in the chest. "Ethan." I changed the lock. "He filed for divorce. Don't try to enter the house. My lawyer will contact you." I read and reread the message 3 times. Each word was like a knife cutting into my skin. My grip tightened, and the diaper bag slid off my shoulder and onto the steps with a soft thud. Our house. The house Ethan insisted on buying 2 years ago, saying we needed a real home to raise our children. This cannot be true. "No, it can't be," I mumbled. My voice sounded strange, like it wasn't mine. Sophia started to cry. I automatically rocked her, trying to stay calm, but my mind was spinning, drifting in and out confusion and heartache. I raised my hand to press the doorbell. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. I clenched my fist and banged on the door. "Ethan, open the door for me," I screamed, my voice cracking, full of despair. The house remained silent, but I know he's in there. The Range Rover his is still parked in the yard. My phone vibrated again. "Ethan, stop making trouble. Go back to your parents' house." Hot tears flowed from the corners of my eyes. He doesn't even dare to face me. I thought to myself, anger starting to boil in my chest. I knocked on the door again, so hard that my palms hurt. "You can't do that. You can't kick my mother and child out of the house like that." The living room curtains moved slightly. He is looking, watching me. Another curtain also moved slightly. Not from my house. I turned my head and my eyes met her. Jenkins, the elderly neighbor who lived right next door, was looking through the window with curious eyes. A few other houses also began to close their curtains to watch. I can imagine the gossip. What did she do to get kicked out by her husband? She just gave birth, so why is she like that? The anger boiling inside me was interrupted by a loud cry by Sophia. "No, we can't let her endure this." I pressed my lips to her forehead and whispered, "Okay, honey, we'll go." With one hand supporting Sophia, I bent down to pick up the diaper bag, my back aching with every movement. I staggered down the steps, my whole body almost collapsing under the weight of physical and mental pain. I should have rested. I should have been home, holding my daughter in the rocking chair in her room. Instead, I suffered abandoned. Bag thrown out onto the street like a stranger. My hands trembled as I dialed the number to call my mother. She picked up the phone immediately. "Hannah? Honey, you should have gone home 30 minutes ago. You were—" "Mom." I choked. "Mom, can you pick me up?" I heard the sound chair is dragged on wooden floor. "What did you say?" My mother's voice suddenly turned cold. "Ethan, he—" I swallowed, tears rolling down my cheeks. "He locked the door. He wants a divorce. I can't enter the house." The silence lasted. After a few seconds, my mother took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice scary calm. "Mom and Dad will be there soon. Don't go anywhere." The call ended. I looked down at Sophia. She was starting to fall asleep. Her breathing was soft on my neck. A feeling despair mixed with determination overflows within me. No problem. I can endure it. I used to put up with Ethan, used to trust him. But now it's over. I sat down on the steps, holding Sophia tightly in my arms, my body aching, my mind chaotic. But the only thing I know for sure? Ethan will regret this. Every day. For the rest of his life. My father's car suddenly braked right in front of Ethan's house. I saw my mother step down first. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold as ice. My father followed, gripping the steering wheel tightly before slamming the car door and striding towards me. "Are you okay?" he asked, but didn't wait for an answer. His eyes were glued to the house in front of him. I tried to stay calm, but my voice still shook as I replied, "Ethan changed the locks. He wants a divorce. I don't need to say more." My mother placed her hand on my shoulder, but her gentle squeeze was filled with determination. "Get in the car, honey. We're going home." My father couldn't control himself. "He can't do that. Who does he think he is? Let me—" He turned to rush up the steps, but my mother stopped him. "Mike, not now." Her voice was tough. "Your parents will help you fight, but not this way." I nodded silently, squeezing Sophia tightly in my arms. The postpartum pain is still dull, but I don't pay attention anymore. I just know that I cannot fall. Not now. Never. We drove back to my childhood home. Everything is still the same. The armchair my father sits in reading the newspaper, the oak dining table my mother always cleans, and the smell of apple pie wafts from the kitchen. I never thought I would come back here in this condition. My mother placed a cup of hot tea in front of me. "We need a lawyer immediately." My father was still seething. "I can't believe he did that to you. You just gave birth, for God's sake." My mother frowned. "Don't say it in front of her." I looked down at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in my arms. She was too young to understand, but my mother was right. I have to be strong for her. The phone rang. "It's Ethan." I didn't pick up the phone. A message arrived shortly after. "Your mother's car is still parked in front of my house. Move now or I'll call a tow truck." I gritted my teeth and tightened my grip on the phone. My father cursed. "You bastard." My mother glanced at me. There's a reason why he does this. No one would kick his wife out of the house right after she gave birth, unless he was hiding something. I cannot deny that. A thought suddenly flashed in my mind. "Story, Emma." I looked at my mother. My voice choked. 3 months ago, when I was in bed, I found something on Ethan's computer. The room fell into silence. My mother leaned forward. "What?" I swallowed hard. "Emails. Dozens of emails with someone named Emma." My father slammed his fist on the table. "Fuck." I clenched my fists. I confronted him. But Ethan said I was paranoid, that pregnancy hormones were making me unstable. My mother took a deep breath. And I believed it. I closed my eyes. I want to believe. I can't face the truth when I'm about to give birth. Another message arrives. This time it's words Linda, Ethan's mother. "We need to talk. Ethan says you're acting out of character. Call me back now." I turned the phone face down. "She thinks you're the problem." My father chuckled. "Linda always thought I was the problem." My mother put her hand on mine. "Hannah, you have to prepare yourself. Ethan doesn't just want to leave you. If he's ready to kick you out of the house, he won't stop there." I felt cold down my spine. "What do you mean?" My mother looked straight into my eyes. "He will try to get custody of Sophia." I froze. No way. "Do you think Ethan will let you raise her easily? He has money, a good lawyer, and he will do everything to make you lose control." I shook my head, but I knew she was right. I looked at Sophia. My heart clenched. "Not. I won't let him steal my daughter." "Never." My father stood up, his voice tough. "So we won't let that happen." I looked at my father, then at my mother. I'm not alone, but I know this is just the beginning of a war I must win. I sat in the car, my hands tightening on the steering wheel as I looked at the phone screen. The message from Ethan's mother is still there. "We need to talk. Ethan says you're acting out of character. Call me back now." I smiled faintly. He kicked me out of the house, cut everything off, And now he's trying to turn the story around, making me the problem? I won't fall into his trap. But there is one person that I need talk. I dialed Emma's number. My breathing was heavy when I heard the bell ring. 1, 2, 3. Just when I was about to give up, her voice rang out. Hannah? She sounded worried. I took a deep breath. We need to meet. This isn't a good idea. Emma's voice lowered as if she were whispering. If Ethan knew, I know you are my husband's mistress. I interrupted, my voice cold. But I also know something else. You are not just a simple third party. You know his secret. The silence lasted so long that I thought Emma had hung up. But then she sighed. I have 30 minutes. The coffee shop is on 5th Street. Don't be late. I drove there immediately. When I entered the shop, Emma was already sitting in the corner of the room. She looked as perfect as the first time I met her. Slick blonde hair, a wrinkle-free white shirt, just enough makeup to look attractive, but not too overdone. Not like a woman who just broke up a family. I sat down across from her and said nothing. Emma touched her coffee cup but didn't drink it. Hannah, I don't want to be in this. I have no problem with you. Really? I curled my lips. So how long have you been sleeping with my husband? Emma blinked, then looked down at the table. 8 months. I felt my heart tighten. At that time, I was 3 months pregnant. He betrayed me right when I was creating his child. I clenched my fists under the table. So why are you here? Emma sighed. Because I know Ethan is not just a simple traitor. He is dangerous. I stared at her. He controls you? Always in control. He wants to know where I am, who I'm talking to. If I don't reply to his messages immediately, he will get mad. Emma smirked, but there was no joy in it. At first, I thought he loved me, but then I realized he didn't love anyone. He just wanted power. The anger inside me flared up stronger. Have I ever loved such a man? I leaned back in the chair. You said he's dangerous. What does that mean? Emma looked around, then leaned down, her voice lowered. Do you know why Ethan makes so much money? I know he's good at investing. Emma laughed dryly. He took advantage of inside information. I froze. What do you mean? Emma took out her phone, slid the screen, then pushed it towards me. I looked down. Email. Hundreds of emails. Conversations between Ethan and a senior figure in the company. He is receiving confidential information about merger deals before they are made public. This story against the law. Emma looked at me, her voice hoarse. If this gets out, Ethan won't just lose his job. He could go to jail. I looked up at her. How did you get these? Emma swallowed. He trusted me. I was the one he used to contact senior executives. He told me to send contracts, schedule meetings. I saw everything. I took a deep breath, trying to stop my racing heart. Do you have enough evidence? Enough for the SEC to blow up his entire company. We looked at each other. I don't know if Emma can be trusted or not, but I know one thing. We have the same enemy. I nodded. Then let's cooperate. Emma looked at me, a bit shy. Are you sure? I don't just want a divorce, I said, my eyes shining with determination. I want to destroy him. Emma smiled softly, a fleeting but knowing smile. I think I can help you with that. We exchanged information. I left the cafe with only one thought in mind. Ethan chose the wrong person to betray. He won't just lose me. He will lose everything. I returned to my parents' house, my head still reeling from what Emma had just said. Ethan is more than just a traitor. He is a fraud, a monster masquerading as a successful businessman. But that doesn't matter anymore. I've got a weapon in my hand, and I will use it. My mother looked at me when I entered the house. Did you meet someone? I put my bag on the table and took a deep breath. Emma. My mother's eyes darkened. It's not what you think, I interrupted. She's not just Ethan's lover. She's also a victim. My father raised his eyebrows. So what? An accidental victim ruined your marriage? I looked straight into his eyes. Ethan used her to commit insider trading. If we bring this to light, not only will he lose everything, but he could also go to jail. The whole room fell into silence. My father leaned back in his chair, his eyes flashing with amusement. So you're saying we're not just going to divorce him, we're going to destroy him? I smiled faintly. Exactly. We make plans. Emma has hundreds of emails in her hand proving that Ethan has engaged in illegal transactions. I would collect more evidence from his computer. A risky task, but I had no other choice. If I can prove he committed the crime, I will have an absolute advantage in the custody trial. But I didn't expect that Ethan also had his own plans. That night, while I was rocking Sophia to sleep, my phone vibrated. Some strange. I picked up the phone and immediately felt coldness run down my spine. Hello, Mrs. Carter. I am your husband's lawyer. I tightened my grip on the phone. Just call me Hannah. I'm no longer Ethan's wife. The other man laughed softly. Not yet, but soon. I'm calling to inform you that Ethan has filed an emergency petition for custody. He believes you are not mentally capable of taking care of Sophia. I froze. What? Your psychological profile, he continued, his voice monotone. It looks like she was hospitalized after giving birth because of exhaustion. Ethan is worried about her stability. I gripped the phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. He's trying to turn me into an incompetent mother. He just wants the best for his daughter. Anger boiled inside me. I gritted my teeth. Then tell Ethan I'll see him in court, and he'll regret testing me. I hung up. My mom walked into the room just as I threw my phone on the bed. What's going on? I looked at her, my voice cold. Ethan wants to steal my baby. My mother took a deep breath. You have to prepare yourself. He has money and a good lawyer. I shook my head. He doesn't know that you have what he fears most, the truth. The next day, Emma and I met again. She gave me a USB. This is everything I have. I looked at her, doubt flashing in my eyes. Why did you help me? Emma smiled faintly. I thought he loved me, but I was wrong. If he was willing to destroy you, he would do the same to me. I nodded, accepting the answer. When I left the coffee shop, I had no idea that Ethan was following me. That night, I was at my parents' house when there was a knock on the door. When my mother opened the door, I froze when I saw Ethan standing there. He walked in without being invited. We need to talk. My father stood up immediately. You still dare to come here? Ethan raised his hands, pretending to be calm. I don't want any conflict. I just want to talk to Hannah. I crossed my arms. I have nothing to say to you. He smirked. What about custody? Do you want to talk about that? My mother walked over, her voice sharp. I can't take her away from Hannah. Ethan laughed. I can, and I will. He walked closer to me, his voice whispering. You think you can beat me? You're getting yourself into trouble. I looked straight into his eyes without blinking. You forget that I know you better than anyone. He frowned. What do you mean? I smiled. I mean, I know what you did. His eyes were dark. I have no proof. I shrugged. Are you sure? He was silent. I could see thoughts racing through his head. After a moment, he stepped back, his face no longer calm. You will regret this, Hannah. I smirked. No, Ethan. You're the one who will regret it. He left, but I knew the battle wasn't over yet. When the door closed, my mother put her hand on my shoulder. Are you sure? I nodded. Absolutely. Tomorrow, I will submit all the evidence to the SEC. Ethan thinks he can control everything. But he was wrong. I'm ready to overthrow him. That morning, I woke up with a completely different feeling. No more fear. No more panic. There was only the cold calm of someone who had decided to finish off his traitor. I wore a smart outfit, Simple, but strong. From now on, I am no longer the weak woman who was betrayed by her husband and kicked out of the house. I am Hannah Carter, the one who will destroy Ethan with the same weapon he used to manipulate me. I put the USB containing all the evidence into my bag. Emma sent me all the documents proving Ethan engaged in insider trading. Now, the only thing I need to do is file them with the SEC. My mother put a cup of coffee down in front of me. Are you ready? I took a sip. Ready more than ever. My father nodded, his voice firm. Then take him down. I drove to the SEC office, my heart pounding with every beat. When I entered, a receptionist politely invited me in to meet the investigating agent. I held out the USB, my voice steady. I have proof of Ethan Carter's insider trading. The agent looked at me intently, then took the USB. We will consider. I stood up. You should hurry, because right now Ethan is trying everything to cover his tracks. As I walked out of the office, my phone vibrated. A message from Ethan. The court approved my emergency request. We have a custody hearing this afternoon. I gave a cold smile. Does he think he can win? At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I entered the courtroom. Ethan was sitting there in his perfect suit as always. He didn't look at me, but I could see the tension in his eyes. He knew I had something, and I won't let him get away. The judge knocked his gavel, starting the hearing. We are here to resolve the custody issue of baby Sophia Carter. The plaintiff, Mr. Ethan Carter, believes that Mrs. Hannah Carter is not capable of raising the child. Does your lawyer have anything to say? Ethan's lawyer stood up, his voice confident. Your Honor, Mrs. Hannah Carter has a history of postpartum psychological stress. She was hospitalized for exhaustion, and we have reason to believe that she is unable to care for her daughter in a stable manner. I clenched my fists, but remained calm. I was prepared for this. My lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Ethan Carter is not only a cheating husband, but also an illegal businessman. The entire courtroom fell silent. Ethan blinked, looking confused for the first time. The judge frowned. What do you mean? I stood up, looking straight at Ethan. Your Honor, Mr. Carter engaged in insider trading in his company. I submitted evidence to the SEC this morning. A murmur echoed throughout the room. Ethan's lawyer tried to interject. This is not a matter of child custody. Your Honor, a man who commits financial crimes, lies to his wife, and is willing to use the law to manipulate others is not a qualified father. My lawyer interrupted. The judge was silent for a few seconds, then turned to Ethan. Mr. Carter, do you have any objections? Ethan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Because he knew he had lost. After a moment, the judge knocked his gavel. I will review the evidence and make a decision within 24 hours of the hearing being over. I stood up, feeling my body lighter than ever. Ethan looked at me with eyes full of hatred. You will pay the price. I smiled. You're the one who has to pay the price, Ethan. The next day, I woke up to a call from my lawyer. Hannah, you won. The judge gave you full custody of Sophia. Ethan has supervised visitation only. I burst into tears, but they were not tears of sadness. It's liberation. Less than an hour later, the news broke. CFO Ethan Carter under investigation for insider trading. He didn't just lose his daughter. He lost everything. 3 months later, I stood in front of my house. The house I took back from Ethan. I put the key in the new lock, feeling a real beginning. My mother held Sophia in her arms. Are you sure? I nodded. This time, this is my home. Emma stepped out of the car and handed me an envelope. I just received a letter from the lawyer. Ethan accepted the divorce agreement. No lawsuits, no disputes. I opened the envelope and looked at his signature. Finally, I was free. Emma smiled. Do you regret it? I looked at Sophia. Her eyes were clear and clear as if she had never been hurt by this world. No, I said. I just regret not doing this sooner. I entered the house, closing the door behind me. This time, no one can chase me away. If you love this story and want to hear more jaw-dropping, emotional, and thrilling tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Every week, we bring you powerful real-life stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. What would you do in Hannah's situation? Let us know in the comments below. And stay tuned. Our next story is even more shocking. Subscribe now so you don't miss it.